2-week trials. What is it? Why do we do it? Why should it be done? Basically, a 2-week trial is exactly what it says in the name. It's a 2-week trial. So when you take on a new dog and you're in your consultations, I always explain that, we'll put the dog on a 2-week trial. We'll trial them out in the groups. So obviously it depends on the groups and the spacings you've got. If you've got the availability in the space to sort of move dogs to different days, then you can go ahead and trial dogs in different groups. If you don't have that availability and you don't have that space, and they've specifically asked for certain days, and you can only fit them into certain days, like the big guy over there. Like when I took him on, they wanted Monday, Wednesdays, and I said, right, Monday, Wednesdays, I only have 9 o'clocks. I only have the 9 o'clock walk available on those days, if you want those days. And yeah, 9 o'clock is absolutely perfect. So we took him on for those specific groups, and I says, right, I will trial him in those groups with the dogs that will generally go in that walk. And if it didn't work out, then I would suggest trying him in a different group with a different group of dogs if they wanted to move the days. If they just want those days, or if I do not have space or availability to move him to any other group, then at the end of that 2-week trial and it's not working out, then we'd obviously have to look at other things, or potentially just not take the dog on at all. And also the reason for it being 2 weeks is that it can depend, not every dog's going to go every single day. If somebody wanted the dog to go in 4 or 5 days, 2 weeks, even a week, is plenty of time to find out whether or not that dog's going to integrate well or not. Some people only want dogs going once or twice, so it's a little bit harder to gauge because it might take them a little bit more time to settle down. So having 2 weeks, 2 weeks gives you enough time. It's harder if they're just going 1 day a week and you've only got them 2 walks to judge it on. It's really difficult to tell whether or not they're going to integrate because it's still quite a new stimulus each week. So we do suggest that they go a little bit more if they can. But generally 2 weeks, now I've done it long enough, it gives you a really good idea whether or not the dog's going to integrate. It gives you enough time to figure it out and decide whether or not they're going to be suitable. And that is all a 2-week trial is. Basically, you're taking a brand new dog on, you're going to trial them in for 2 weeks in the groups that they potentially would be going in for the foreseeable, to see if whether or not they're going to mix with the dogs. Like my dogs always go in this one, and sometimes they'll go in the next one too. The big lad there, they said he's never had an issue with dogs, but he is an entire male. He's an entire male. Could be funny with entire males. Might try and mount the neutered male. I don't know. But we need to try him in these groups to see whether or not he's going to get on all right with him. And after those 2 weeks, if he was constantly trying to mount this lad, or he was constantly starting fights with that one, or these two were having a scuffle, or he just weren't integrating well, he weren't getting in with the dogs, it was making it very hard work, and he just, it would be, he's not like that whatsoever. He's cool as a cucumber, absolutely chill. No issues whatsoever. He had a bit of a grumble. He had a bit of a grumble a couple of times at the entire male, but I think that they were just sort of figuring each other out, and it was something I watched very closely to see how they were going to get on. But yeah, a couple of grumbles here and there. Now they're absolutely fine. He gets a bit overstimulated at times. Very big lad. His hackles go up, a lot of adrenaline, especially when the male's running around. It's just something you've got to watch, but he's absolutely no bother. Yeah, if after those 2 weeks and he was not fitting in whatsoever, then I would have to say to him, I said, look, not working out in this group, do you want to trial him in another group? If not, then unfortunately I can't take him on. Or if I do not have space, I say, look, he's not working out, he's not getting on with the dogs, I do not have space or availability to put him into any other group whatsoever. We're going to, unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to work, and we're going to have to just not take the dog on. And then there are the other kind of dogs, ones where they just might not, they integrate, they're causing a few issues with the dogs. There's the other where they might not integrate, but for an absolutely different reason. So sometimes you can get on a new dog, and sometimes it can be, and unfortunately this is the reality, not all dogs are going to be the same, and that should be obvious. Some dogs can be bell ends. They just can be, and they can be over the top, bullshit, erratic, jumping over dogs, running into them, like mounting them, getting overstimulated, over aroused, you know, just absolutely losing their mind. Now, while these dogs don't mean any harm, it's going to cause issues. It's going to cause you stress. It's going to cause the dog stress. It could end up in a bit of a nip or a bit of a scrap, because not all dogs are going to reciprocate that well. You know, very just poor-mannered dogs, very dogs that do not play nicely or fairly, just over the top and in your face kind of dogs. Now, you can get these kind of dogs, it does happen, you know, where they chase them round, they bite the legs while they're running, or they're nipping at the tails. And do you know, some dogs can just be like that, and while they don't mean any harm by it, it can cause issues, sometimes more than having a dogs that just stand off together like two entire males. Go this way. Because they're over the top, some dogs, and that's when this stuff starts happening and they all start like jumping on each other, and all this chaos starts happening, that's when little nips happen. So it's something that I like to cut out very quick. I like to go, like, you know, get that out. We don't have that. Anyway, these dogs, no matter what group you be in, will get overstimulated by the amounts of dogs. It's either just the way they are, just lack of socialisation, being brought up with poor manners, not being, you know, corrected or told by another dog. It could be a variety of things that have caused them to act like this, or keep on acting like this way, you know, if they've not been told. And if I was to put a dog like that in this group and he were doing it to the big lad, or my male, or especially my female shepherd, that dog would get told. It just would upset the dynamic. Now, these two are playing, don't get me wrong, and he's watching, he's doing whatever he wants. Now, if we put a dog like super over the top, try and mount everything, and erratic and bullshit and stuff like that, even with these guys, you know, it would get, it would escalate. It would change the dynamic of this walk. It wouldn't be as relaxed. It would be a lot more stressful. Now you could put that dog in a different group, exactly the same thing, exactly the same thing. Sometimes you can get away with putting these dogs with very steady older females, where the energy is really low and there's not much to set it off. But all it takes with some dogs is that little bit of excitement, that little bit of stimulation, where a dog just loses its mind. So let's say you trial that kind of dog within them 2 weeks, and no matter what group you've put it in, it's just not working out. It's getting overstimulated, over aroused, it's barking, it's nipping the heels, and do you know what I mean? And all this stuff's happening. Then it's not going to work out. Now, at the end of the day, it's up to you whether or not you take the dog on after the 2 weeks. Like I say, 2 week trial, it's not concrete. You could trial it for longer or less if you wanted to, depending on how you run your business. But if at the end of them like 2 weeks and you decide this dog's just not fitting in with the group, it's making the walk super stressful, it's just making the dynamics of the walks, it's upsetting the other dogs, it's ruining their walk, it's ruining your walk, it's ruining everybody's time. You know, sometimes dogs just get naturally just too overstimulated by being around other dogs, and these dogs will be better suited to a solo walk or a very calm walk. Putting them in a big pack, even though this isn't the biggest one, could be enough to overstimulate them. So it could end up upsetting things in the dynamic, like I've just said. So at the end of the 2 weeks, if that was the case, you'd have to consider maybe not taking this dog on, even if it is sweet as milk. What's going on here? Honestly. And that is why we do 2 week trials. If you state to the client that you do a 2 week trial, you're going to check out the dog, see what groups it can go with, if it's going to integrate well, and if it don't, it gives you that position to say, look, you're not just dropping the dog out of the blue, you've outright told them. And it just gives you enough time, and it gives you a, you know, if they're not integrating well, you can explain that to the client. And if this is explained then beforehand, then you're both on the same page. This is why you should outright state that you're doing a 2 week trial. It just gives you that out if the dog's not going to integrate well, and you can just call it a do after those 2 weeks. And obviously if the dog is great and you're taking on after them 2 weeks, absolute peachy. But yes, that is how I do them, that is why I do them, and it's why I think they should be done. We didn't do it at the very, very start when I was quiet, but looking back, if there was one thing I were to go back and do as well, would be to integrate these from the start and do proper trial periods to check out the dog. So yeah, that's it guys. Hope this helped in some way. If you did, please do leave a like. I will catch you guys in the next one.